from the top, the messaging is about unity, not about division. But on the ground, people say, this is our moment, we've arrived. We will now undo all the wrongs of history.
Rahul, there are 1.4 billion of us. There will be some who will say some things. And we are trying for the first time in 1,000 years to address very, very deep and painful wounds. You saw that even in South Africa, which had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which suffered these wounds for a few decades. And yet, at times, things have gone awry out there. It's perhaps it's a part of the process. जब मंथन होता है थोड़ा विष भी निकलता है. But I'll tell you why I am confident, because I'm confident about the wisdom of the Indian masses, and the intuitive attitude of mutual respect that comes in. I, as a Hindu, will not be shy of celebrating my religiosity. I have never done that. I wear an Om Namah Shivaya Kada, Rudraksh Mala. I never hide it. I haven't hidden it since, and for a very long time, even pre 2014. This thing that religion is a personal thing is a very Western concept. It was a reaction in the West to the overweening dominance of the state, which tried to suppress science and reason as well. In India, it is not that way. But let me point out how most common Indians behave. That someone like me, who's a very open and deeply devout Hindu, will respect and go and pray at a Haji Ali Dargah as well. And I can speak about it publicly also. There's no issue. I've just completed a documentary on the Ram Janmabhoomi ji. The documentary will be released very soon in a few days. I won't mention the TV channel here, Rahul, a competitor channel, but that documentary shows
Okay.
Muslims who are devotees of Lord Ram. They are Manganyar Muslims who are Namazi Muslims, but we have actually shot them, at Ayodhya, singing bhajans to Lord Ram. That's what they do.
Okay.
This is the Indian way. You would have seen Muslims praying at Venkateswara Mandir. I would like to point out, if I may be a little candid, one had read there during the Chandrasekhar ji government, the Hindu and Muslim groups had come close to a deal which would have sorted this issue out peacefully. And regrettably, some elite historians ended up wearing that pitch. I think Hindus and Muslims could get along
Okay.
if maybe some of those troublemakers weren't there.
Ashwin, what does this moment and this transition mean for the young generation that's watching at this moment? My generation grew up at a time when religion was what you did at home. It was a completely private matter. There weren't Ram bhajans blaring on microphones as you walked through market squares, walked on the banks of the river Ganga. Religion now far more, with the Prime Minister doing what he did, leading the ceremony at the Ram temple of the Pran Pratishtha, being a part of it. It's very clear that religion is not just something that you do at home, it's very much in the public consciousness, and this government would like it to be that way. What does this mean for the way in which this generation will be brought up, which will be different from the way your generation, Amish's generation, or Pawanji's generation was brought up?
If I may be for a moment politically incorrect, Rahul, the truth is that my generation was basically taught that public worship was a problem if you were a Hindu. As long as you belong to a non-Hindu faith, then professing your faith, your religiosity in public was par for the course in some ways. And I believe that it is the sacred duty of every Hindu to ensure that there is no triumphalism, that there is no sense of supremacy, because we need to convey a message of security to each and every person who lives in this country. But I want you to look around the world, that countries that were once welcoming migration from Muslim lands are now finding ways to shut their doors. The rise of right-leaning parties should be a cause of concern in Europe. And look at the groundswell of support that Trump is receiving in America. So in that way, Bharat, in its own very clumsy and its own messy way, has welcomed and assimilated all faiths through the centuries. And it has been that single glue of Sanatan Dharma that has been instrumental in establishing a plural ethos. And I genuinely believe that this is a moment where I believe that the Muslim population of India now needs to coin a new term, which is the Sanatani Muslim. In other words, the Muslim who has a religious identity which is rooted in Islam, but a civilizational identity which is rooted with India.
Why should anyone decide for them what they should do?
Because to a very great extent in this country, if you look at what has happened so far, the Muslim leadership unfortunately hijacked the Muslim population. My dear friend Amish right now spoke about the fact that there was the possibility of a settlement way back, which unfortunately I believe that the leadership painted themselves into a corner. Honestly, at that point of time, the issue could have been sorted out with 2 or 3 key places. And now we have the Places of Worship Act, which has been the blanket protection for all places using 1947 as a cutoff date. And when you have certain amount of stubbornness and rigidity on the part of a few antiquated leaders, you run the risk that there could be legislative or judicial review of the powers of that legislation, in which case you will be opening up yourself to hundreds and thousands of disputes. And
Okay.
none of us want that.
Just wrap up what you're saying in 20 seconds.
None of us would like to see hundreds and thousands of disputes open up. And that is where I believe a certain amount of flexibility needs to be shown by bringing in a far better Muslim leadership.
Okay, last question, Pawan Verma. What's your advice to parents at this moment? Bringing up young children in times different from the times in which they were brought up. The desire to learn about your culture, your history is not just now something that's good to know, it's almost like an imperative.
I think parents today of any denomination should be proud of Indian civilization. It is one of the oldest civilizations of the world which has seen antiquity, continuity, assimilation, diversity and peaks of refinement. Secondly, I think parents should teach their children a little more about this culture and civilization. You know, Rahul, when I wrote Adi Shankaracharya, so many educated Indians did not know when he lived, what he wrote, what he stood for, why he was called the reviver of Hinduism. We are insulated and cut off from the great achievements of our past through ignorance or its absence both at home and in the educational curriculum.
Absolutely.
We need to bring it back. Parents should also tell their children that in the name of the great unifier, whether it is Sri Ram or if it's Shiv, who is just pervasive consciousness, or any other deity in India, they are all reflections of that Nirgun Brahm, which is in everyone. That, as validated by science now, should imbibe their view of how we build a society which is harmonious. Because I believe one thing is very important. You know, a harmonious society has a direct link with good governance and economic growth. A country at kalesh with within, as was said by Prime Minister, cannot progress. So I think that a new generation, proud of its cultural roots and rooted in it, but also modern looking, progressive, inclusive, this is what parents should teach their children.